I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, a traveling through this world of woe, and there's no trouble, no toil or danger in that fair land to which I go. I'm going there to see my mother. I'm going there no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going.
Are you ready, Kathy? Okay, we are going to open up for today, November 11th, the ABR. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Zink,
Here.
Scott Hopkins,
Here.
Gary Moselle,
Here.
Stephanie Poole,
Here.
Howard Ratash, and Tipkin will be absent. We have quorum.
Thank you very much. Starting at the agenda, is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board for an item that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and move to the approval of the minutes for our last meeting, which was October 28th. Do I have a first and a second for that?
First.
First by Stephanie, second by Scott. Anything before item 1? Item 1 was a discussion item. Anything about that? Moving on to item 2. Item 3. Item 4. I actually have a couple of comments that Kurt gave us. If people would look, item 4 is 3885 and 3887 State Street. What Kurt would like us to do is to take item 2 and break it into two motions. The first sentence is fine the way it is. The board recognizes that the elevations are conceptual and not fully developed, so the board comments regarding the elevations are very general, period. Item 3, some board members believe the west elevation massing is too repetitive and could be more playful. Then change 3 to 4, and then he wants us to break up the third comment into two statements. So item 5 would be the last sentence, which is some board members request further study to open up the building corridors more. Do people follow that?
Yes.
Yes.
Seems reasonable.
All right. Any other discussion for item 4? Moving to item 5, Kirk has one comment. This is 235 East Coda Street. Under the motion number 2, he wants to add in the site features. So it would read, return with plans and drawings showing the existing buildings, comma, site features, comma, and property lines. Because there was the site wall and their patio in the back, and there's a sidewalk that weans through the property. So we wanted the word site features added. Anything else for item 5? Moving to item 6, does anybody have any comments? Kirk actually has some for item 5 and item 6. Instead of sufficient, he wants to use efficient. Let's see how that reads. If the 3-car carport is shifted further to the setback line for a more efficient use of the open space. Sounds reasonable. And then item 6, he wants to change. Let me read this for a sec. Okay. How he would like item 6 to be changed. Redefine the garage design for a flatter sloping parapet. Period. The parapet should be either without a cap or using the tile cap for a more acceptable and appropriate design element. I don't know if we wanted the parapet to be sloping. We wanted the parapet to be level. He had a sloping parapet,
That's right, we wanted it to be,
a level parapet.
exactly.
The roof was to slope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should take sloping out.
Redefine.
Garage for a flatter parapet detail.
How about just for a flat parapet detail instead of flatter?
Okay.
Redefine the garage for a flat parapet detail. The parapet should either be without a cap or using a tile cap. More acceptable. You follow that, Kathy? Okay. Anything else for item 6? Item 7. We have a couple more comments from Kirk. He did his homework. Item 4. Change the last part of the sentence and improve the utilization of spaces instead of the open space. Utilization of the spaces. And then he wants item 6 to be rewritten the following way. The large and tall glazed windows on the west elevation aren't appropriately scaled for the style. It's a politer way of putting down what was written.
And I have one item as well.
Okay?
Item number 1, substitute neighborhood for site.
Oops. Many board members find that the traditional Spanish design would be more appropriate to the site.
For the neighborhood?
For the neighborhood. Okay? That's a good call. Anything else?
Nope.
Good. And the rest of it's the consent agenda. So I'm going to call for a vote for the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I abstain of items 5 through 7.
Abstain because you left. That's fine. Moving on to the consent calendar for last Monday, November 4th. Do we have a first and a second? First by Scott.
Second.
Second by Gary.
Okay, November 4th was reviewed for item A, 104 Los Aguajes Avenue, and that was given final approval of the lighting details. Item B, 1611 Olive Street, received final approval as submitted. Item C, 1080 Coast Village Road, received final approval as submitted. 531 East Coast Street, final approval with the condition that the backflow device be painted either the wall or paint color. And item E, 7 North Nepal Street, final approval of details. Item F, 405 to 421 Via Rosa, final approval conditions, and those all were reviewed by Kurt Radine, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
Items.
Any discussion about the consent? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The consent calendar for today, which is November 11th. Do I have a first and a second? First by Scott, second by
Second.
Stephanie.
Yes, the items were reviewed on consent were item A, 709 East Haley Street. That actually, application was drawn by the applicant, so it was not reviewed. The item B, 3943 State Street, received final approval of landscape plan details. Item C, 3126, I apologize, item B was actually postponed at the applicant's request, so that's going to come back. That was the 5 Points Shopping Center, and I think they're going to come back with the entire project back on consent. Item C, 3126 State Street, received final approval with a condition to remove some of the overhead lighting. All items were reviewed by Kirk Griddy.
Great. Any discussion about the consent? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're on to item D, which is announcements. We actually have one announcement that City TV has told us that the camera that goes overhead is not working, so we're not going to have the drawings on the TV show today. So we apologize for that until it gets fixed. And they're working on it right now as we speak. Any other announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have two absences today. Tip Kung and Howard Witosh are not attending, and Kirk Reading may arrive later today. Item number 3, it was actually agendized slightly incorrectly. It's a county-owned parcel. Therefore, the footer is not entirely correct. That the project is going to get courtesy comments to the county. The city's planning commission will not review that project. So you'll be hearing that with the case planner today. And then item 6 was postponed at the applicant's request, so that will make the agenda meeting shorter today.
Okay. Good. Anything else?
I did want to mention to you that several weeks ago we had a project at City College, the scoreboard, and they have responded back and said that they could adjust some of the things that you requested. And I believe we're going to, did we forward that
Yes.
email?
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
Just wanted to point out that some of that comments were incorporated, some was not. So we're thanking them for at least considering some of the comments that you gave on the project.
It was fabulous. Yeah, they moved it 15 degrees. Anything else? If not, subcommittee reports. I don't believe we have any active subcommittees. So we are on item 1, which is 219 East Mitchell Terrena. This is a City of Santa Barbara project. This is a proposal to replace existing impermeable concrete sidewalks and parkways surrounding the Alice Keck Park Memorial Gardens.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Cameron Benson, and I am the Creeks Division Manager for the city. I'm joined today by Tim Burgess, who is a Water Resources Specialist with the Creeks Division, and Laura Yanez, who is a Project Engineer with the city's Public Works Engineering Division. Creeks Division, one of the things we work on is surface water quality, creek and ocean water quality improvement. The largest source of water pollution in the city comes from urban runoff or stormwater runoff coming over impermeable surfaces throughout the city, hardscape where we have sediment and hydrocarbons and metals and nutrients that washes off those impermeable surfaces into our storm drains and goes into the creeks and ocean untreated. And so for the past several years, the Creeks Division has worked on projects to do, or demonstration projects really, to demonstrate different types of designs that could be used to replace impermeable surfaces with permeable surfaces throughout the city. And we've come to your board with those projects in the past, and that includes parking lot projects that we've done in Mackenzie Park, Stevens Park, at the West Side Neighborhood Center, and we have currently under construction in Oak Park, where we've replaced over 100,000 square feet of asphalt with permeable pavers in all of those areas, which has essentially eliminated all of the runoff from those areas. So we get the water quality benefit, but also some other benefits in terms of localized flooding, groundwater recharge, and things like that. So we're moving out of, as a Creeks Division, we're moving out of the parking lot projects into other types of hardscape public infrastructure. And what I'm going to be presenting today is potential design or potential project for the sidewalks surrounding Alice Keck Park Memorial Gardens in the downtown area. This is part of a larger project that includes 3 other locations where we have 2 alleyways and then a street and sidewalk combination. Those all fall in the jurisdiction of HLC, so we'll be taking those 3 locations to them. And I have met with one member, the chair of the HLC, to kind of talk just generally about those projects. Today we wanted to bring this to you for a discussion, to get your input, and then we will be coming back to you for any kind of design approval later on.
Is this the only set we have?
I turned in a set when we submitted the application.
We can all cuddle around. All right, you can start.
So, as you can see on the title sheet, it's a what's called low-impact development that's trying to restore the natural hydrology of a site, and we're looking at streets, sidewalks, and alleys. I should also add that we have these concept level plans. The city has submitted a grant application to the State Water Board. It's a concept level grant application at this point, but we'll find out in December whether we're invited back to submit the full application, and if we do, that application will be due in February. So our hope is to have approvals from your board and from building with building permits by the time we have to complete and submit that application, and basically that grant program could pay 80% of all of these projects, which in this case the grant amount we're looking for is about $2.3 million.
You want to flip through those photographs real fast?
Sure.
And we normally put them right here, even though the TV camera's not
Okay.
working.
Okay, so I brought with me some photographs of the existing conditions at the site. So the gardens are surrounded by, at Santa Barbara Street to the west, Arriaga to the north, Garden to the east, and Mitchell Terrena to the south. We're not looking at touching anything within the park boundary, just the sidewalk surfaces.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
We'll look at them and pass them
And
that way.
here, as you can see, is the project location.
We all should know where this park is, and we've all been here before, at least more than once.
Great. So what we're presenting to you today are two different design options. Our preferred option is number 2. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We wanted you to just see some different possibilities here. So the first option shows a sidewalk where we would have, I believe it's a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk, and then essentially replacing just the parkway strip with the pavers. And if we do that, we have to do this design to accommodate a 1-inch storm every 24 hours as required by the city's stormwater management program and the Federal Clean Water Act. So what we would have to do with this type of design is to excavate underneath the paver area to a greater extent to allow this additional runoff from the concrete, allow space to accommodate that runoff from the concrete. The other design is simply to use all pavers from the curb to the fencing around the park, and again, the reason for that is it's cheaper for us because we do less excavation. We have less conflict with utilities that are underneath the sidewalk or crossing through the sidewalk. One of the things we wanted to hear from you about was the aesthetic of the two options.
There's only one bulb out in all 4 corners?
I believe this is the only place where the curb extends out into the street. There are corner pieces in. Well, actually, I brought the photos so we could check that. I think it's just a corner ramp, and we would propose to leave the ramps as concrete, and if you were to choose a certain type of color or something for the paver, we would try to match that color.
Okay.
I'll save my questions.
And then we have some cross sections of what this would look like. This corner is the cross section for option 1, and this is the I guess this is showing a cross section. Laura, do we need to put an edge restraint down the center, as shown in that cross section?
If we have 2 different kinds of pavers, it's an option. If not, then it could be.
Oh, okay.
If we wanted to show the difference.
Okay. So I guess one possibility would just be the orientation of the pavers if you were trying to offset the parkway from the sidewalk area. This is an area where, generally speaking, the parkways are all paved with concrete already. So.
All right. If that's all for your presentation, I'll open up public comment. Anybody here wishing to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll go to staff. Are there any letters? Good. Questions, Stephanie?
Yeah. Is the city moving towards a detail like this for handicapped ramps in general. This is obviously across the street, it's not on the property, but aren't they going toward more directional ramp styles instead of the corner?
Yes.
And your proposal will keep those the same, is simply cost-saving measure?
We will look at the,
Time out. We need to have you up here
Yeah.
with the microphone just so it's recorded, and then also announce your name just for
Like-
the record.
There's a corner detail. There's the directional.
So your name first.
Oh, my name is Laura, project engineer with the City of Santa Barbara. Since this is just concept design, we had just proposed recreating what's there. But once we look into the design, we can look whether a dual directional would be more beneficial.
What are you proposing for the planting wells, the tree wells?
We're proposing to, right now, there are existing mature trees in most of the wells, so we're going to leave those there.
Open,
Correct.
Yes.
and the
Correct.
grade would be flush with the
And
finish?
and then there are several locations along Mitchell-Terena Street where the street trees are missing, and we would replace those trees as part of the project.
Okay, so you would be replacing where they're missing ones.
Right. So there are tree
Right.
wells, but no trees.
You have a concrete detail holding the pavers in place at the tree wells.
Yeah.
You will have one?
Is that on here? Does it show on here?
No.
Okay. In all of the other projects and working around the trees, one of the things we have to put in is an edge restraint that goes down to the subgrade, and the subgrade is flat is flat throughout the area so that we can get the water to spread out to the greatest extent possible. So we do, in all of the projects we've done so far, we've worked with the urban forest superintendent, and we've placed the edge restraint down to the subgrade around the tree. But I think originally at the request of a landscape architect at ABR at Mackenzie Park, we started also using root barriers
Right.
there to go down even deeper than the surface of the subgrade, and we've continued that through all the projects.
I don't mind.
I'm just looking at
Questions from anybody else? I had a question just to, what is your preference on how to handle the handicap ramps at the corners? Your preference is to keep them the same, or you're really open for comments?
No, we're open for comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are going towards the dual directional, so if, it's
Okay.
better to do so, then we will change it.
Can the ramps themselves be pavers, or does it really make more sense to make them out of concrete?
It's
I-
that detail.
Yeah,
Right, I guess you've got the
You have to put those in, yeah.
truncated
the
dome.
truncated
Yeah.
domes,
Yeah,
right?
so you're kind of stuck with that.
But it might open up this part of the
Correct.
sidewalk to being brick, whereas it wouldn't be that in this
Right.
case.
As well as that
Yeah,
piece.
I think nice kind of. But these little lines in the concrete, that's part of the ADA detail.
Yes.
That perhaps that has to be concrete.
Okay.
It looks like what we might be able to do in that to get those score marks into there is to have an edge restraint that comes around the surface right there, and then just
score
score
it.
the top like
Yeah.
that.
The material you're calling for is brick. It looked like a brick detail, but is it going to be some sort of other paver, or permeable paver, such as used in the parking lots?
Well, we're open to your suggestions on that. There are a couple materials that we've been looking at. One is the same type that we've been using in the parking lots. Another one that we've located is a brick. It has little edges coming off of it, but they're shorter than what we've used in the parking lot. So the gaps or the spaces in between each of the pavers is a little bit smaller. And then we also looked at a type of paver where the bricks themselves are porous, and so water can travel through them. We have concerns about using those type of bricks because the system there to make them porous, what they do is they take the fines out of the concrete before they mix it, and so there's little void spaces in between in the concrete. But what we're dealing with are fines that are coming down out of the air, whether it's sediment or car exhaust and things like that. And logic would tell you that those fines are going to fill in the spaces that have been taken out of those bricks, and they're not going to be permeable for very long. With the grants, the city's on the hook for maintaining permeability for these things for 20 years. And so I have concerns about using that type of material right now until I've had more experience looking at installations of those and how they're working.
And have you heard any comments from the public about, or feedback from the public on the usability of those parking lots pavers?
The feedback from the public has been all positive on the parking lots. The concerns that we've had has been with ADA access, wheelchair accessibility. We haven't had any direct concerns, and I only have an anecdotal story of when we went out to do a test with a water truck out at the Westside Neighborhood Center. They have a pretty significant population who are in wheelchairs that use that facility, and there was a woman in a wheelchair there who I was able to ask how this was for her, how it compared to the asphalt, and her feedback was that it was actually better because you had it was more uniform. You're not going to have the same type of cracking and alligator effects that you have on asphalt. So where you did have lines, they were consistent, and there is gravel that goes into the gaps between the bricks, and that was one of our concerns. And one of the things she pointed out to me was walk through any asphalt parking lot, and that gravel's more disguised because it's the same color, but it's the asphalt essentially unraveling. So she said, I'm used to riding over a lot more gravel than this in an asphalt parking lot.
And other debris on sidewalks, such as leaves around Alice Keck Park, won't interfere because that doesn't get swept by street sweepers.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So what we're doing is where the Creeks Division is doing these projects, what our role is in ongoing maintenance is to maintain the permeability. And so what we're trying to do is come up with designs that don't create any new maintenance requirements for either parks or streets or anybody else. Leaf litter is an issue for us because it does clog those gaps, and over time, it kind of breaks down and it captures fines. So what we found is for example, at Mackenzie Park, that's swept pretty regularly with I don't know what to call it, a little Zamboni sweeper thing. That's not entirely effective, so we're trying different methods there. We've brought a street sweeper in, or different kinds of street sweepers, and we've gone out just with a shop vac, and that works the best, but it's time consuming. So these sidewalks are cleaned as part of the park maintenance, but they'll be cleaned for aesthetic reasons, not for permeability reasons. That will be our responsibility.
Okay. I have one last question.
Okay, now we need to wrap.
The neighboring park, the
Alameda.
Here, is that the park you're referring to that's under HLC?
No, the HLC locations that we're looking at are in Plaza Veracruz Park, so there's an alleyway there, and we're proposing to take the asphalt out and replace that with pavers. There's a alleyway on off of the 1200 block of Laguna Street, and then we're looking at a street and sidewalks on a street called Arlington Avenue.
Right. So, but is this something that will be proposed in the future for those other parks that
Well,
are neighboring this one?
The idea is to
blocks?
provide a demonstration project so that can be replicated in other locations. That would be an easy place to go with this because it matches up.
I have two questions that I
have
actually.
something as
You
well.
go. I want to ask questions of the board in general, but you go, Gary.
All right. I have a couple questions. One is about the project itself and about runoff and how much actual runoff from this particular area. There's no driveways. It's a park. There's a lot of permeability happening at the park already. And my concern is, have you proposed anything that's going to go beyond the curb, where there actually is water surge, or there actually is runoff and stuff that runs into the creek and oil that needs to be retained? Is any part of this project going to retain some of anything beyond the curb that perhaps would be more advantageous to get to remove from the creeks?
Right. Well, that's a great question. And with the current design of the sidewalks here, all of the runoff from the sidewalks comes off into the gutter and down the gutter into the storm drains and into the creeks. And so having the park there doesn't do anything for the sidewalk. That only covers the park area. So this area that's covered here is about almost 21,000 square feet. So, but the other issue you brought up is maybe a more important consideration, and that is, I think there's a misconception that the streets are the only hardscape location or parking lots that would have hydrocarbons and oils and the types of pollutants that we're finding in the creeks and in the storm drain. And the fact is that all of those same things that you're finding in the street, you're finding up on the sidewalks, just because, one of the things we find, for example, are metals that are coming off of brake pad linings for cars. And so those things become airborne, and every time, to the extent they're in the street, every time a car goes by, they throw those things up in the air and they settle back down onto the sidewalks. So you have those things on the sidewalks, you get a storm, and the current grade of the sidewalks is taking it right out to the street and down the gutters. And so, yes, it's 20,000 square feet.
I'm watching the time, so I'm going to make you a
But
short answer.
the reason I brought that up, because I've noticed you've got these barriers here, and one of the barriers is in between the parkway area. But my question is if the design were to change, and because you're making a conceptual design here, and I know that I've seen this in other cities and other areas, but if you were to take from let's say from the curb cut or from the gutter cut, and you were to slope as if everything is a slope from one side of the street to the other, then you would get part of the surge that would charge into the area as well, as opposed to stopping the surge at the gutter part. Is there any area that you've thought of concerns about that, or is there something that you can do, perhaps, to retain more of that water on this project?
I think the main issue there is just your capacity, and if you're trying to capture all the water that's coming down the gutter,
yeah,
you're going to quickly get overwhelmed. But as I said, we do have a project where we're looking at a kind of a discrete street segment where we're planning to replace the whole curb and gutter area with permeable pavers, so that any runoff from the street will go down and be able to be accommodated in those basin areas.
Okay.
2 questions for the board so we can give them direction, and we'll move on. What I've noticed in these photographs is, in this example, they actually have hardscape here, and they're proposing to do hardscape where the red fire zone is, where in this case, we're not going to be doing any more bowl wells because of public distress. So we'll probably stick with this other version, but the direction is, here they actually had bark chips of some sort going further back. Now what was proposed by the applicant is that the whole thing was going to be solid pavers, perhaps 2 different tones, and then they're going to add tree wells. So the question is, do we like this look here that has the pavers going all the way to the corner to the new detail, or do we want to have in areas where there is a red fire zone where there's no parking to have some type of, I want to say, raw 100% permeable versus something that's only like 15 to 20% permeable, and then that's 0%. So I wanted some feedback to sort of give them some direction. My personal thing is you're going to have to do something like this. Whatever the current city standard is going to happen on the other 3 corners, and this is going to be what it is. And
There must be a city standard on proximity of trees to corners.
The
triangle.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, the question really is, do we want them to be pavers? And I'll just tell you my personal opinion. I do not want to see pavers going all the way up to the corner like that. If this is going to be a red zone, so there's no cars parking here, that means we don't have to worry about pedestrians crossing here. It'd be nice if that became a little landscape area. And then where the cars are parking, we can have pavers going from the fence to the curb, just because you never know when the person's going to be getting in and out of the car. But that was my opinion, but I wanted to know what the other board.
It's usually a 30-foot setback from each corner.
To a certain height, correct?
30-foot setback for the red zone?
From the corner, yeah, for the red zone.
So then, I'll just tell you, my personal opinion is that we remove these pavers back 30 feet, and that you put some type of growy system here that's not greater than 7 inches or whatever our city standard is, so we have a little bit of more nature at the corner, and that these things should represent the new standard, and then 30 feet of open space, and then you can, pave the whole thing to this point, and then you have 30 feet open.
If it's going to end up as wood chips, so I think I prefer the pavers.
I wouldn't want to see wood chips, and I was wondering why that one city detail, because everywhere else we have these kind of, these are planted.
Well, this is what's
west-
going. This is what's going in everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere is brick. And just to be clear, this is across the street. So this is not in the project area. But this is the style that's going in, and the reason that they're putting in the bricks there instead of any kind of landscaping is that the city doesn't have the ability to maintain the landscaping there.
Yeah.
So whatever this may have started out as, it has become this. And so I don't have any problem with your suggestion at all. As a practical matter, I do know that these places, even though it's striped or it's painted red, are drop-off zones. I see a lot of people pulling over there and people hopping out either for nearby land uses. There's a church across the street and a daycare facility across the street and so forth. So people are, and getting out to get to the park, they are in fact using that area, and that's probably why it was paved with concrete in the first place. But having said that, I think we're going to meet resistance from either the Streets Division or the Parks Division, whoever would be charged with doing that maintenance.
Yeah.
I think we'll see some resistance just because they don't have the budget to do that. And I think that's why we're seeing that design going in.
Okay. So let's wrap up some directions and move on to the next project.
Mr. Chair, before you make your final comments, I just wanted to point out that Alex Keck Park is a landmark, and although the sidewalk is outside the boundary, I think the HLC will be informed of this project along with other project cities presented to the HLC. And I know historically they are sensitive to anything that abuts sandstone, so as far as compatibility of brick and sandstone curbs. I think there might be some portions. No? Did I see some?
No, there's just sandstone along Mitchell-Drana Street.
Okay. So as you make your comments, just know that the HLC may also have some input.
Okay, no, that's actually good, because they'll be more restricted than us.
Mr. Chair, I'll make some. Okay, yeah.
You
sorry.
brought up 2 schemes. I have a strong preference for the all-paver scheme. I think it's a more attractive solution.
Right. Well, thank you. That's our preference, and that's transportation's preference as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
my preference is a little bit different. I do like the permeable idea on the sidewalk area, but I feel like the permeable area in the parking strip is not something that we should go, direction that we should go. And I would suggest that they use either DG, which would be 100%, or some type of surface that's similar to that. And I know that we've used decomposed granite in other areas, for instance, around the History Museum, Natural History Museum, and the Historical Museum has all DG in the park strips. Some of the Housing Authority projects do. And at least that's 100%. It's not, it's going to be a lot cheaper to put in, and it's something that the maintenance department doesn't have to pull weeds on. So,
Right. The problem for us with the DG
These are comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just going to
So I personally would not prefer the parkway area, which is meant for planting, to be turned into a sidewalk. I think the concrete that is there should have been removed.
Okay, great. So let's fold things into a motion.
Do we need to give them a little more feedback on this notion of DG, or?
We can all,
I think that's a permeability issue. The perm rate of it. That's why they don't house?
Well, it's not permeable, but the bigger issue for us is that we have massive sediment runoff from DG
Yeah.
everywhere it
Let's
goes.
see,
So all
the
those
permate
pollutants
Yeah.
are
Doesn't,
absorbed to the
fast
sediment
enough.
grains, and then they get washed out. So if you look at any DG in a rainstorm, you'll see it flows right off, and it'll make a latte color to the water that's coming off of the sidewalk area.
So we can expect this happening in any places where there's DG?
No, what we're looking at is locations that have concrete there already. So we weren't proposing to replace any kind of landscaping or any kind of existing unpaved area. These areas are 100% concrete right now.
I would say just my only comment is to sort of bring back some landscaping in the parkway wherever possible. And I hear what you're saying about the unloading zone here, and that might be the case for part of that 30 feet. But it is an urban environment, but it's a park strip, and we'd like to see landscaping in that zone as much as possible. And thank you for replacing the missing trees and wherever else there's missing trees. That's an important thing to do.
I think I can make a motion.
Okay.
The board appreciates the stormwater management goals of the project. Of the two options presented, I think the consensus was that the all-paver option was preferable. The board would also like the applicants to consider DG in the parkway, and where possible, at the corners perhaps, increase the amount of landscaping in the project.
Okay, is there someone who wants to second that motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second. Under discussion, can we add a comment that the applicant is to replace the three corner handicap details with the current city standard?
Sounds good.
Anything else? Okay, and you're on to HLC, and we would appreciate when you come back to here, we get HLC's feedback as well, having to do with the pavers against the sandstone walls and such.
Got it.
And provide samples next time.
Okay. So with that,
Color too.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Terrific.
Oh, I can
Thank you.
call for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we're going to save these because these run from the Phantom TV camera. Okay. Moving on to item 2. 25 minutes late, not bad. 235 East Coda Street. We modified the minutes of the last time you were here, so don't be surprised.
What?
We might.
You modified the minutes?
Yeah, while you weren't here. Don't worry about it.
Was it in my favor?
Of course not. No.
These are all the same.
Yeah. She gets her own. She's
She's
VIP
special.
today. I want to
Sure, anybody.
announce your name for the record.
Rex Ruskoff, I'm the architect for the Alana Club in this project.
Bill McCarty, I'm board member for the Alana Club.
Cool. Great. Should I just read through the motion?
Sure.
All right. First one is to restudy the elevations to modify the proposed improvements to be more sympathetic with the existing architecture, existing building, including the stairway and new walls proposed around the courtyard.
So what we did is I took, member Witosh's comments into it, made that a full arch, add a little detail at the top and a little base at the bottom, making it more a little Italianate, and then did quarter arches for the landing from the parking lot side, same detail. Added a detail at the top. This is on top of the site wall, but that same reveal would be at the top of the landing there to give it a little bit of character. I just realized that didn't draw it in. Oh, it did. So so that landing has a little bit of a minor cornice detail, if you will.
Okay.
So that takes care of that one.
And the site wall as well.
The site wall has the cap. Member Witosh was talking about can I get upside down? He was talking about going to a full arch on that door. I left it a square door and just did the simple detail over the top of it. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to be as formal as that would be.
Did you go higher than the thing?
No, this had detail where it stepped down
Oh.
that wasn't sympathetic to the architecture of the building.
Okay. 2 is return with plans and showing the existing building and property line. Some of those layers were turned off or something like that.
Yeah, there was, we'll start at the first floor, there was layers turned off and other layers that were turned on. So I think Member Gradine, all the people that had comments aren't here, was concerned about the trees. So I've located the trees and showed that the footings are out. These are date palms, pretty compact root balls. So we'll put small pad footings there for our 2 supports. Stair coming down to a new concrete landing. This is an existing step that has the words first step in it, and we're going to relocate it from here to here, and reuse it. Pavers throughout, add a little paving here.
Is that the property line?
Property line's over here. There is an easement to be shared with mental health next door, and that's where this sidewalk comes in and can be used by both properties.
Okay. And then provide a landscape plan.
So we have an existing palm here and an existing loquat tree here, and I'm doing some underplanting with 2 species of aloe down there to give us a little bit of a softness to the bottom of the wall where it meets the ground, wrapping it around the side.
And then you got the tandem parking here approved. Was there any dirt between this curb and that wall?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I think we're paved right up to the wall. It's paved all the way down right now as asphalt. So our wall will be cutting the asphalt to put in a wall and then go to pavers. But this whole side yard is paved right now.
Good. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing none, are there any letters?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there's one letter in opposition.
Okay. With that, I'll return it back to the board for questions of the applicant. The only comment
Here
is
it's the same color and finish as the house, I take it?
Yeah, and the plaster will match the building, color, texture.
I think there was one last thing. I think there was a comment about maybe considering some sort of newel detail at the bottom of that stair.
You
Is
did.
that something that you looked at or decided to
That's
work?
something that I didn't get the minutes, so I didn't have it, but we can
Okay.
easily put one on there.
Okay.
I would definitely consider doing that.
okay. If there are no other questions,
Gary had-
I did have
I'm
a
sorry,
question,
Gary.
actually. It was brought to my attention that there's a trash can in one of the photographs there. Do you have a trash enclosure on the proposed for this project?
No. There's a recess as shown right up there. Those come this way. Right there. Trash and recycling are recessed up against the building.
Up against the building right here? Are these retaining walls that are right next to it, are they existing, or are these walls existing? Or are they walls?
We're looking at this area right here is where we're talking about. So we'd have to eliminate that landscaping there and store our trash up against the building there.
In general, are you allowed to have parking in front of your trash like that?
I think it depends on the timing of the pickup. We'd have to work with Marburg to resolve that issue. Do you have any? Do they come real early, or do you know?
I'm not sure.
So
But
we'd be-
after the, about 8 o'clock, the parking lot sort of empties out, and the parking is sort of sparse until the noon meeting, or depending on the time of the week, once in a while there'll be a 10 o'clock meeting, but usually between 8 and 12, there's not a lot of parking going on there.
So we would be losing that landscaping.
Yeah,
That's where the trash goes.
You'd have to.
There's no opportunity to, you are adding landscaping here, is that right?
That's the existing landscaping that's there.
Or,
That's where the trash bin is shown right there, is right up against that building.
oh, gotcha, okay. So that is, this is that.
This is here, and the trash bin in the picture is shown right here.
Okay, so you're swapping kind of like for like, essentially.
Yeah, kind of one for the other, because we have a little more depth there.
Okay. Do you not have any planting on your
Yeah, I was going to go right there.
Yeah.
So we're actually,
Just dirt, DG.
so there's a note on the plan that says that this is the new trash cans and that we're going to be putting new landscaping in that spot.
No, it was out of the scope, and I mean, you're bringing it up, and it's a good point. It was out of the scope of what I was contracted to do, which was the stair and enclosing the courtyard. So I don't know where it falls in your conditions of approval, but it's
So-
outside of my scope. So
Parking lot is a separate project than this one, is that right?
the parking lot's pretty much there.
Okay.
You know, I don't know where you guys want to go with this. If
Jaime, do you understand what was being brought up?
Yes, it's something that we usually ask. So I'd prefer to have some direction now as to the applicants to whether they should screen it or hide it. Are you okay with it being placed where it's proposed? It's probably, less visible than what it is now, but so we'd like to have an approved location.
So if it's approved location, it's actually where landscaping used to be, and now it creates an opening for future landscaping that can be planted there.
That's your purview to see if you want to alter it in any way.
Doesn't look like, it looks like asphalt underneath that.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
asphalt. Would be
Oh,
put it
okay.
in.
You
There's a
proposed that
combination of-
even though you didn't?
Well,
It's not
there's
yours.
overlays of various architects that have
Okay.
worked on this project.
Right.
So I'm working in this area. This was something that may have been on a
Somebody
previous
else
drawing,
did,
and it would be easy enough to accomplish to do.
What's that? Do you know? This appears to be the tandem parking, so what is this?
That's probably a change in paving. It might be concrete
Well,
to asphalt.
actually, right in here, we had a, where they could lock their bicycles up. So that would probably
So that's there?
relocating to right here.
Okay.
But there's a bicycle lock area right here.
It would be easy enough to accomplish if we accept this as the location. We'd have to work with Marburg to make sure that these spaces are open when they come.
Sorry.
For example, I've got a project in Pueblo Viejo where they come right down the alley, pick up the bins, and are gone before the coffee shop opens, and coffee shops open at 6 a.m. So
I mean, these spaces impact them coming in right now, so
Right.
we're just basically scooting them over to this
I think
location.
this is a great solution. It's just that the landscaping needs to
Yeah.
get flip-flopped.
And
flip the landscaping, make these walls, and put some gates on it.
Yes.
we don't mind doing that.
That's
you
it.
know.
Done deal.
Okay, so we propose
Uh,
2 gates.
You put a sign, no parking during pickup day.
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
You want to draw a little bit of growy things? There you go.
Keep track of how many I draw.
36-inch box.
Okay. Any other discussion, comments?
6-inch box aloes. There we go.
Okay, just
Okay.
keep moving.
Let's keep moving, folks. Need a motion? And this can be for, it can be final with the comments that are being made, and staff will make sure that it's happening.
Mr. Chair,
Oops.
do you have any requirements for the actual paver materials? I don't know if we have that submitted.
There's nothing being shown here. It's on the inside of the wall except for the one portion that comes out through here.
If you have no requirements, then we assume it's open to whatever color.
So pink would be approvable.
There's no
We
vantage
recommend
point
it.
for public viewing, so
That's
except for this one little split right
How
here.
would you say it's an
What
earth
do you-
tones,
wanna go with pavers?
earth tone pavers?
anything on the exterior is subject to your review.
Can that be reviewed during a consent item?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's make the motion for positive comments returning back to consent with the paver information and the additional landscaping and the
Details and trash collector details.
trash can
And
detail.
then I think Kurt felt the same way, but some sort of
Newell post?
newel post.
For the newel post, I'd propose to do something like a stubby one of the columns where I pick up a little bit of the cap, a
That
little
seems
bit of the base, and stick it on there.
Sure.
Okay. So Kathy, the motion would be to return back to consent with 3 items. Item 1 would be the applicant is to bring information about the pavers that are being proposed. Item 2 would be the applicant is to show an enclosure around the proposed trash enclosure location. 3, provide additional landscaping where the existing trash is currently located. And 4 would be to provide a newel post at the base of the stairs. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'd be happy to make it if you're not
Anything
making
else?
it.
I really shouldn't. Someone want to second that? And then any other additional comments?
No.
If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
1 week?
1 week. 1 week continuance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, which is 2981 Cliff Drive.
Extra?
Back on schedule.
Yeah, we're 10 minutes early. We're going to take longer.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. You have big drawings.
We have the staff planner here.
Great. Want to introduce yourself and tell us about the project?
Hi, yes, Kathy Kennedy, case planner for the project. I just wanted to remind you, I think you were told earlier that this project is courtesy review only. It's a county-owned property located in the city limits, so it's courtesy review only.
Okay.
But they do go to Planning Commission for CDP, Coastal Development Permit.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so this is Jill Van Wee with County General Services.
And thank you very much. I manage capital projects for the Parks Division of Community Services for Santa Barbara.
And I'm Jeffrey Stoutenborough, the architect for the project for the county.
Hey, you can actually walk around if you want. Look over her shoulder. We normally have a TV camera that shows images up here, and it's currently broken today. And that's another problem we've heard more than once.
Here's the parking lot.
So if you want to
Getting rid of that dog
This is
wash out here.
the restaurant.
They have a dog wash they're going to get rid of out here.
This is that grassy area.
And the men's going to be
It's a brand new building.
Sir, we're going to have them do a presentation, and if you can follow along here.
I'm sorry.
No, not a problem. I just want to get going, and then there's an opportunity for you to give us comments and, to look at the drawings. But I wanted to have them actually explain the project, and that might help you.
I'll start by saying I'm horrible at reading upside down, so I'll do the best I can here. Starting with just what's on site, and then I'll explain the purpose of the project. Generally, everyone's familiar with the Arroyo County Beach Park. It's situated in basically a little valley between 2 cliffs. It opens out to the ocean on one side, and then it flattens out in this area towards the Las Positas area. Existing on site right now are 2 main buildings, the Boathouse Restaurant, which is approximately 3,400 square foot footprint, and the Watershed Resources Center, which is approximately 1,300 to 1,400 square foot footprint. There are a number of support buildings out at the street. There's a dog wash, there's a masonry trash enclosure, there's another masonry trash enclosure type structure over here that's being used as storage for the restaurant. there's a garden shed, and there's an existing women's restroom right here. The purpose of the project is to basically, it's practical. We're basically trying to replace the dilapidated restrooms that are there currently. And currently there's a men's restroom, which is inside the Boathouse Restaurant building. And then there's the separate women's restroom, which is outside a freestanding masonry structure. So part of what we plan to achieve is to make it a little simpler to find the restrooms. Right now there's numerous signage pointing here and there, and if you're a woman you go here, and if you're a man you go there, and so forth, and you can't really see, especially the men's restroom, from anywhere elsewhere in the park. So another problem that we're trying to reconcile, another practical issue, is that currently there's a drive aisle that they use for deliveries to the back side of the restaurant, and it goes right through this area here. And it gets used basically at sunrise. And after that, their trucks, when there are any kind of cars parked in here, the trucks can't really get in the aisle, and they actually have told us that they park out on Cliff Drive and have to hand cart their things in from Cliff Drive, which is a way. So they make sure and try to get there early, it looks like. And that particular drive aisle is asphalt, and it's crumbling, and there are numerous utility pipes and conduits underneath there. Just in the time that we've been planning this project, the main water main goes under there, broke because it was raining, and when the soil gets saturated, the trucks just squash the stuff that's underneath. So we're planning to replace that with a concrete drive aisle that's stronger, that won't have that problem. And that gets to siting. We have numerous constraints. The parking lot, obviously, the grassy park area to this side, which we don't want to encroach on if we can help it. And there's an emergency beach access that needs to come from that drive aisle down to the beach for emergency vehicles. And then, of course, we have the existing structures on this side. Original proposals talked about removing the women's restroom and placing the new restroom in its place. But the county favored retaining that, and the reason is mostly because the restaurant could use some extra storage space. And there's also a possibility that that room or building might be converted to some sort of beach-oriented concession, like a surfboard rental or something like that. So given that, we had a fair number of constraints, the main one being our friend here, Mature Palm. We went to great lengths to make sure we did not have to move that palm. I think all of our consultants have been involved in some special way or other in making sure that we can retain that. We looked at several massing studies. We actually modeled 30 massing studies in 3D for the county early on. We whittled that down to first to 5 schemes, which we took around, and then we went to another round of 3 schemes, and then we took those to the stakeholders, the boathouse operators, the watershed resource people, representatives from Supervisor Wolf's office, who is responsible for the funding of the project, and then, of course, the county general services. And interestingly enough, I've never had this happen before, but everybody unanimously voted for the same project. So we ended up with this scheme that we have now, and it's essentially, it was the only flat roof scheme we proposed, and it is a low-slung, flat, one-story building. Keep going, there you go. So it's essentially a sort of in the direction of a mid-century modern mass, where it's low and horizontal with a flat roof with a broad overhang. And as far as materials, it's essentially a box. The materials that are on site on the 2 main structures are, at the boathouse, we have board-formed concrete, accent walls, and then the main part of the building is horizontal siding, mostly white. that building has been sort of added on to in different ways over the time, and so the roof on it is no single type. It's got some flat roof portions and some gable portions and some hex-shaped portions. The other main building on site, the Watershed Resources Center, has, I'll call it periwinkle blue horizontal siding. It also uses natural concrete, and both of those buildings have sort of sepia-colored fascia. So on our building, the concept is to, it's a support building, and it's supposed to just sort of stand in the background and support the other buildings. And so we're matching the blue siding from the Watershed Resources building. We're using natural board-formed concrete, just like the boathouse next door, for the privacy walls outside the doors. We have no glass, but our screens for the vent openings in the restrooms are stainless steel, and the frames for those are dark brown Trex, which sort of mimics the sepia fascias that the other buildings have. And the roof is a light gray, low-slope PVC. The fascias on our building, we decided to keep white color rather than the dark sepia, just for lightness and for practical reasons, so they don't have to repaint them so often.
What was that again?
Hold off to that thought and make a list in your hand, but you can answer since you made the reference.
Sure. The fascias are the horizontal boards at the edge of the roof, and they we're planning on making those white painted material rather than the sepia that's on the other buildings, just because it's a lighter color and it'll be more practical. It won't have to be repainted so often. And that white material is also on the other buildings. The other material we have on our building is we have a curved wall that fronts the parking lot, and it has a number of cues to help users see it from the steps at up from the beach, as well as the entrance to the parking lot as you drive in.
Okay.
And from the sidewalk that goes right by. And you can see it here. And that masonry is basically it's a blend, but it's essentially a tan masonry, similar, compatible with the other kinds of masonry that's on the site, except ours is going to be split-face block to give it a little bit more interest. And with the blend, it's a 3-color blend that would look a little bit more like a stone wall, but without the cost of a stone wall. So in front of our project is a small plaza that we're using for access from the sidewalk, and that's our ADA access point. And that'll be a colored concrete in dark brown. The plantings that surround the building are essentially grassy beach landscape concept. There's really not much landscaping left around our project. And the one sort of change is that in between the existing women's room and our project, we're placing a gravel infiltration basin with sandstone boulders and a couple tufts of grass. And that's twofold reasons. One is to help with the stormwater management plan requirements, as well as kind of discourage pedestrian use in that area because there are openings to the women's room. We don't really want people hanging out over there, and in between those buildings is a more difficult place for the rangers to keep an eye on. So we're terminating the sidewalk here that wraps around the building. We're terminating it on either side and providing plantings that tend to be a barrier at the parking lot side, and then making it, sort of a place that doesn't look like where you'd like to walk. Last, I guess, is we have a couple of canopies that go over the entrances to the restrooms to give some, architectural cues to help people locate the doors. And essentially, the number of fixtures that's inside the building is identical to what's already there. So we're essentially taking the same number of square feet of what's there and just providing new with the same number of fixtures. It's essentially like for like.
Okay, great. Do you have any 3D images or any other photos you want to show, and then we'll move on?
Well, I might just hold up the photos real quickly. I don't have any other 3D images with me today, but this is the site. You can see the existing masonry structure that's next door, and that's sort of how we're sort of speaking to that structure with this piece of the building. And then the watershed resources building beyond. And then this throat opening here between our building and the next one is how we ended up placing the building on this side and relocating the drive aisle over here to keep the visual opening as broad as possible. And then this again is the Watershed Resources Center. You can see it has the natural concrete walls and the periwinkle siding. It's horizontal. Again, the boathouse with its board-formed concrete and white horizontal siding. And another shot of the site as it exists.
Great. Good presentation.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. I'm going to open up public comment. And we've got a chair there and a microphone, just because we record everything.
Okay.
And you're more than welcome, each of you. And then after you speak, we have this pink slip over here that we can record your name and address. And then you'll be on our mailing list. And then I'll go to staff. Does staff have anything else to add before we go to public comment? Okay. Have a seat, and because normally there's a camera right here. He's going to zoom in on you.
Okay, hi.
Your name for the record?
David Schott, and my wife Constance. And if the first picture he showed here would let you explain what we are. We're the closest and contiguous neighbor to this.
Are you above the hill on the bluff?
I'm sure we can point that out on the parcel plan.
Exactly.
Next sheet.
Yeah.
So this...
would that be this house, sir?
No.
And that's why we're asking.
Over here somewhere?
Here's where the Boathouse restaurant is, and here's that little lookout thing.
We share the center line of the street. It's
okay.
I guess
So you
it's
like on
it's
Seaview Road or something like that?
It's this one, I guess. It's Seacliff.
Seacliff.
Yeah. And we just I think a little humor is when we went in front of this board, we love the fact that you want to save the palm tree. Okay? When we went in front of this board 10 years ago, more or less, we were restricted of not putting any more palm trees on our property from this board. Okay? That's kind of fun. So our main concern is what it looks like looking down on it. We have a bluff top spot. We look down. They did a wonderful job on the roof of the boathouse right here. And only thing I'm concerned with is the white. We want it to blend. This is our piece of Hawaii down there. So we would like that little bit of white not to be white.
They called it light gray, but...
Okay.
The roof is actually gray.
That's great.
Yeah, I shouldn't interrupt him as well.
No,
we're having a dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay, so your concerns are the views of the roof itself.
Right. And I can't imagine it happening, but the little bit of that detracts from the view now is the boathouse used to, and once in a while stores things on their roof. And this roof, I would hope would be, not just disciplined. And I could answer any questions, but...
I'm glad you came down to tell us your concerns.
I don't... One thing that's happened that it wasn't addressed exactly here is the parking spaces keep getting eroded. The dog facility, probably 2 or 3 parking a day are consumed by that. When they put in the water thing, it used to have a different ranger parking, so we lost they moved the ranger over, I think. So I think over a period of time, we've lost some. The most important thing for the public is parking. Otherwise, they try to park on our property across the street. They try to go all the way up Allen Road. It's probably the most important single use. And I know they're aware of it. Everybody's aware of parking, but I haven't heard. Is there an impact at all on the usable beachgoers parking?
Okay. We'll ask that question. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else for public comment? You want to say anything? No. All right. Staff, anything?
Just one letter in opposition from Paula Westbury.
Okay. So I'll return it back to the board for questions of the applicant, and then we go to comments. And the one question we'll ask is anything having to do with parking. Right now we are looking at a 1-for-1 swap between the restroom facility and the restroom facility. Now your existing buildings, does that trigger any additional parking load?
It doesn't trigger any additional load. However, the park facility is not would not conform to federal ADA laws unless we restripe the handicap stalls. The handicap stalls that are there do not accommodate van spacing and so forth. And because those stalls necessarily, by law, take up extra space, there's only so much space in the parking lot. Yeah. So we have lost one space to the ADA requirements.
Okay.
Additionally to that, though, we have provided additional bike parking. We've more than doubled the bicycle parking there.
Good. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Gary.
Questions, the canopy material, what is that over the doors?
The canopies are tubular steel that would be galvanized. And
hot dip galvanized?
And yes, and predominantly through the project, we have stainless steel. We've tried to avoid any use of wood on the project. So the restroom fixtures are all stainless steel fixtures. The urinals are no-flow urinals. The lavatories, everything's stainless steel. The screens are stainless steel. And so those canopies sort of follow through with that, and that matches the detailing that's on the Boathouse restaurant. They've used very modern stainless steel detailing on their outside seating area.
That's the glazing. I have a question. The old restroom facility area had some showers and some foot wash areas.
Yes.
I'm not seeing any of that included on this new design. Are we eliminating that altogether?
No, that will remain unchanged.
So that will remain in place unchanged?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not located, sorry, Jeff, this is not, they're not located on the restroom facility, the women's restroom facility. They're on the other side of the, by the overlook, on the other side of the restaurant. Those remain.
No change to that.
No change.
No change to that.
This,
Okay.
this is the trench drain for that right now. So that facility is right here. And we had debated on actually relocating that down on the other side of the parking lot by the lifeguard tower, and then letting it naturally drain through the riprap into the Arroyo Creek slough, which is okay by health department, because essentially you're taking what came from the beach and putting it back on the beach. But then just due to cost reasons, we decided to just leave it alone and keep what's there.
Okay. Other questions?
Quick question. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask. What's the elevation?
Oh.
The central element, drinking fountain?
Oh, it's a niche inside the wall, and this is a hydration station for filling water bottles. A lot of people that walk on the beach carry water bottles.
Oh, I see.
And there's already a drinking fountain on site, And so this would be an additional, hydration element that's not there. These things are quite popular with people that walk, and it's in a niche essentially because of ADA requirements. We either had to provide, guards on the side, which we thought would impact ambulatory flow, or make it into a niche.
And there are no windows here. This is just a stainless steel grill. Is that right?
That's right. It's an ambient temperature facility. There's no heating or cooling. It's
no bug screen. Just
no.
Do you have any questions?
I think my questions have been answered. Go ahead.
Does the county have any dark sky requirements? I know in Santa Ynez they do, but do they have any in general?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can ask that question internally.
Double check to see if that would apply here.
Actually, I believe that the fixtures that we're proposing already comply with that, just voluntarily.
The question I was running with is the skylights, and how do you make a dark sky skylight?
Right. I don't know that we have lights on, security lights at night after the park closes. On the inside of the space.
Vision motion sensor lights.
In other words,
In fact, we weren't going to have any lights, interior lights at all in the facility.
So like at 6 p.m. in December when it's pitch black?
No, actually, we do have internal lights, but
Do you really? Okay,
but
put
at
this
closing
in.
time, they
Sorry.
lock the building up.
Which
so
is
I would
sunset.
assume that they're not leaving the lights on as well.
And the boathouse has their own restrooms for their
customers.
Yeah, their customers.
Okay. So the building is locked at sunset.
It's supposed to be, yes.
Good. Comments? These are comments only that would go on to the Planning Commission. Do you have any comments?
I would, my only comment is are favorable about the massing of the project. Aesthetically, I would think I would agree with the neighbors in keeping the dark colors rather than the light colors, consistent with the other buildings on the property. So that would be my only preference on that. It would be nice to see the color and the effect of the split face block, how that looks in reality, as far as color and the texture and how it's actually the effect of what that's really going to look like.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Start with the site plan. I think the architecture of the building is okay. It's taking cues from the existing building. My main concern is with the overall site plan. And I think that the project would be more successful if an existing restroom were removed, or if there's a need for more space, if it were incorporated into one building. The fact that you're making landscaping that's supposed to be uncomfortable and hard to walk through and creating these interstitial spaces, I think it harms the overall site plan. And it starts to feel like a cluster of too many buildings at the end of this very beautiful beach area. So I think the project maybe got off to the wrong start by keeping the existing building. I think it'd be more successful if you combine them. You'd have more landscaping, and some of these awkward interstitial areas would go away. That said, I think the architecture does a good job of blending in, perhaps too well. I think it could be a little more playful, and maybe some color perhaps. I like the idea of the board form concrete. I think most everything's done well. It just feels like there's an opportunity to have a little more fun with it. The water niche in the center, I guess that's the right spot for it in terms of plumbing. Yeah, the niche doesn't show on the floor plan. Huh?
It showed on this other larger floor plan.
Okay. It makes sense. It seems like it'd be something more more decoration to that. Or it looks a little forlorn in the center there. And maybe that's more with the modern aesthetic. The stainless steel grill, perhaps it's just the CAD drawing, but it looks really fortress-like. And maybe it's just all the black lines coming together in the CAD drawing. I see a sample, I'll think otherwise. But for now, it looks like, my God, this looks like a bunker. So hopefully, when we see the actual material, that lightens up. I like the curved CMU wall. I'd even look at a ground face CMU, which is like a higher level CMU. It's been ground and it's very interesting looking as opposed to the split face. And maybe that's a graffiti problem, I don't know. The elements in front I think are interesting. I think those could be made more playful and more fun. And perhaps even the drinking fountain comes out and there's a sculptural element attached to that. On the whole, for what it does, blending in as a background building, I think it's a good building. Again, my issue is with the site plan. I don't think it's very successful keeping the existing building. That's all.
Gary, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll make a couple of comments. Actually, I find the location welcoming because it's always been hard to find the bathrooms. They've been in the back. They're not really apparent for the average beachgoer that doesn't go to the one side. And usually the beachgoer is centrally located right down the center of the parking lot. So this will make it visually easier to find the restrooms. And overall, I really do like it. I think the roof does need some softening in color. The one issue I may have is with the split face CMU. And I think that that's a material that's not really compatible with the style that you've chosen. And Scott spoke of the ground CMU, which is a little bit more in keeping with the style of architecture. But for me, with the direction of what the boathouse did and everything, I actually think that a board form concrete would look great on there, or maybe even a smooth plaster. But the split face CMU, I think, even though there are existing buildings there that are split face CMU, I don't think that that's a particular feature that you should choose, because it's dated and it worked okay for the 60s when they put that shingled and slanted roof on there, but it doesn't work okay for me today. So that's the only material that I would change. That's all right.
Okay. I'll actually concur with the comment that Scott made about the site planning, and this bench here is what bothered me the most, because when you're here at the shower and we're always going to say you go to the restroom and we'll meet at the car and we all go here and then we all regroup here, I can just see that there's, we'll be hopping over this bench and it's raised bench. So I want to say that people, even though you don't want them to walk here, because we came up this way, we were over here, or somehow it needs to be a little bit more using this area. And if there was a way that you relocate this and merge these two buildings together to make this a little bit larger, but site planning wise, it just seems you're throwing away land and causing it to be unusable, and we as humans will still meander through there. So there's something awkward in that location, the way that I would actually use it from point A to point B. The color of blue that you were going to say, the periwinkle blue, I would encourage you to go with a color other than that and let the water resource building read as, hi, I'm all about blue water, and you're all about something else. And then don't try to copy the same color that they have. The dark sky thing is a very valid concern, because you actually have residents that are above this significantly and that would look down here, and you want to have basically a peaceful little quiet setting, and to have 4 or 6 little lights that shine up, it would be a little bit on the bright side. How to address that? The hours are a great solution, and if there was any way of putting, I don't even want to get complicated, but there's a concern about the skylights and having too much light coming up and ruining an evening view. And that would be a significant thing having to do with the Coastal Commission and your condition CDP, just because of the rural setting that's in. The color of the roof, because it's not being air conditioned or heated, it can go a little bit on the darker side, even though we're making the building warmer. It's once again, we're trying to cut down on the reflectivity of the structure. I noticed you didn't have a gutter called out, or maybe you did, on this one side. That would change the profile slightly for the fascia. And maybe it is. I was just jotting down notes thinking the water was all going to go one way and didn't see that, even though it's, these are early schematics.
And not destroy things on the roof.
We heard your comment, but we'll make that an exception. And I hear the comments that the other board members made about the block wall, and I'll just stay out of that one, even though I hear it and I don't have a strong enough opinion one way or the other. The one comment I did have is with the signage, and maybe this is prone for vandalism, but if there's any way that you could take these letters and put them above this canopy that sticks out here, and it would be a little bit more prominent than this, I'm not sure. And the first thing someone's going to do is bend the letters and break them, and then you wouldn't have woman anymore. Or you can add additional letters to it and change it every week. But this seems a little bit too quiet or understated on that wall, but maybe it'll have some more punch from a distance. And that's all. It's a great project, and something definitely needs to be happening there, and drainage is a horrible problem in that back quadrant. So it's a good project, and thanks for saving the palms. So we need to make comments only that would go on to the Planning Commission. Oh, did you speak?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, she was first.
And I concur with everything that was said thereafter.
So, someone want to make comments?
You want to take a stab at it, Gary?
No, because there's some things I didn't concur with as far as the site planning goes, and they may be valid.
Why don't we just start off with saying that some board members are we'll start out with the positive. The positive, we are thankful that we appreciate the county doing this project in something that is in need. And we appreciate the interest in quality architecture on the site and the attention to detail that's being shown in these drawings. Some board members are concerned with the space between the existing women's restroom and the proposed new restroom, in which it's been designed to be unfriendly to pedestrians, and feel that that area could become a successful pedestrian area instead of turning our back away from it. Some board members are concerned about the color of the roof and would see a color that would be darker. And one board member had a concern about dark sky compatibility dealing with the skylights. It was mentioned that the building would be locked at sunset, thus the lights wouldn't be on after sunset, so there wouldn't be a dark sky concern. But it's part of the minutes, so that's part of the approval process for this structure, if skylights are to be included.
And consider alternative materials for CMU.
Some board members would like to see an alternative material for the CMU block that's being proposed. More specific?
Ground face or board form concrete.
Ground face, smooth block, or board form concrete. One board member had a concern about using the identical blue color that was used at the Water Resources building, and think there's an opportunity for a different color for this structure.
You can put that some. You can put some.
Some board members feel. The board understands that there is a loss of parking due to the ADA requirements providing additional handicap parking, and appreciate the improvements that are happening at the beach. Anything else?
You mentioned providing vandal-proof lettering for the signage, or in a new location.
Since I'm the only person, I just wanted to throw that out there. I go back and forth in my head, so they'll think of it on their own. It's not really need to be in the motion. But, it's just the wear and tear. Anything about the comment about the water filler in a niche to make that more inviting?
I don't know how others feel. It looked a little...
It's hard to tell what the design is from,
Yeah.
because it's at an angle, what the design is. If it's a prefab sort of thing.
With some
what the
prefab
materials are.
mechanical item, it seems a little odd making it the focus.
On the board,
It's a big stainless steel.
To talk off the record,
well
if this was a
made by
45-degree
Elkay.
angle or if this was a bevel, to make it more pull people in, pull people out, but somehow make it more than just a little has-been kind of spot. But I could say some board members would like to see the automatic bottle filler given more prominence, either by addressing the niche that it's in or relocating it out to the entry plaza.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, because over here it's going to be a focal point with lots of activity, or over here.
We'll have to look at the side access around that area, but it made the most sense to put it where people are going to be traveling to. But yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
comment.
yeah, got it.
So we have a first, and can we have a first, and can we have a second, and then we'll see if there's any other additional comments.
All first.
First by Scott, second by Stephanie. Any other additional comments for the motion?
Scott, did you want to mention any more about the site planning?
Well,
Because I didn't know
I
if he
just think
really
it's a-
addressed your concern.
Beautiful, pristine site, and fewer buildings is better than more buildings. And I'd like to see the existing building and the new building combined into one building that's more attractive than the sum of the two smaller buildings. It seems an approach that I hadn't seen studied.
I think they're planning on making the other one a surfboard rental shop, though, right?
And that's going to increase parking.
I mean, it's not a good surfing beach, I can tell you that. It just seems like it's like a concession stand. You know, I don't know. How do others feel about that?
I concur. It's just wasted space, like this area already is.
It could be designed better.
Yeah. The existing building there now is not great. It is a background building, and unfortunately, our new building is taking cues from that. And it's a comment.
Are they going to be coming back here before they go to Planning Commission?
That was the question for you. They're not required to come back, either
Comments
before or
on
after
what's
Planning
proposed.
Commission. So you can require or request that they come back again, either before or after, or just have these comments be passed on to both the Planning Commission and the county VAR.
How about you make another readdress or add to the comments that were in the motion about your site planning issues, and we'll move them on so that other
If we have
people
to
will
deal
read
with
our comments.
the financial constraints with this project, do we even have? Can we even?
We don't
deal
talk
with
about
that?
financial constraints, we talk about architecture.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
This
some
point of the project
some board members felt the site planning could be improved by combining the old structure and the new structure into one structure. How's that?
That successfully addresses the uses and future uses planned for the project.
Yeah, that would be part of it.
Okay. Good. Anything else? Then we're going to make this an indefinite continuance on to the Planning Commission. So, any other discussion for this? Do you as the
Appreciate your
applicant?
recommendations. Thanks very much.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
and
much.
thank you for the neighbors for coming. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your way.
What,
Did you get that? Salt plan?
I don't know what that's about.
Do you keep these, or?
We keep one of them.
I think you only have one.
Yeah, you keep two, we keep one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kathy, we're going to move on to item 4, which is 420 East Haley. This is a new item. Hello, hello.
How are you?
Good. Okay. We have no TV camera, so we just have no overhead TV camera.
Okay, cool.
City TV, it says that use the plan provide as much as possible. They are seeing it on TV. It's just access.
Oh. All right, keep it on the X. Have your name for the record in your presentation.
Aramis, sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead, Aramis. Aramis Arcega with the AB Design Studio.
I'm Clay Rowe with AB Design Studio, and Josh Bloomer from AB Design Studio as well. Three amigos. This is a building that AB Design Studio is currently purchasing. And we're here today to talk about the exterior improvements that we're doing to the building. We're going to do some interior improvements as well. We have a few things to kind of deal with, so I want to kind of run through them with you. It's probably easier to look at this site plan because it really starts to tell the story. Currently, Haley Street's here. I'll borrow this for a second. Haley Street's here. There's a front door here that doesn't work because the slab inside the building is about 8 inches or so above the sidewalk. Somebody put in a ramp here a while back, and that doesn't really work because it can't work as an entry. So our proposal would be to relocate an entry door over to the side so that we can get adequate ADA access and so on and so forth. The real thing that we're doing on this project is lopping off about 1,000 square feet of the back of the building. And the reason being is the necessitation for parking. So if I go back to the front, the cover sheet here, you'll see our proposed site plan, which allows us to remove the gate that's here today, which you can see here. Remove the gate that's here today, allow for this access drive that's already there, come to the back, and then remove this portion of the building. And we are required to have 3 parking spaces. We've worked this out with transportation, with planning. We've really chased this one kind of up the flagpole just to see if we could, A, make it work, and B, get the right number and requirement to work towards planning. Obviously, you'll notice that it needs multiple maneuvers out of here. Transportation's been supportive of it because they feel, at least the conversations we've had, the benefit of actually getting parking on the site outweighs the maneuverability. We are showing an area of bike parking back in here. There was a plan check from planning done by Danny Kato that had a few items in it. One was historical, which Nicole said it's non-historical, that she didn't have any concerns about the building. The other was trash. We're probably going to have to put a trash can, or small trash can here, but at least it's screened from the public way, which is the requirement. But that, in essence, is the site plan. It leaves us a footprint of a building here that we're going to put our office in. The floor plan is rather simple. I'm only going to show it just for the sense of understanding the building from the exterior. We're planning to come in and come up a ramp, and then this would gently slope back down. When we're out at this point, we're only about 1.5 inches above slab, so this would be just slightly sloped. This gives us ADA access from the parking, so we have both parking ADA access and public way ADA access, and then this kind of pathway here. We're adding windows along the parking lots, the driveway side. We're adding some sliders along the parking lot side here. There's existing skylights that will remain. Conference room up front. We're adding a nice long window in the front and a small office up here with a window there. So I'm only showing this because it relates to the exterior. On this page we have some elevations. Looking upside down again. So it goes proposed and existing, proposed and existing, proposed and existing. So the existing down the driveway side have this weird gable that was cut off at some point. Has the roll-up door, which we're going to turn into window, and then add a few windows down the line this area right about here is where this is being cut off. So the rest of this building here gets removed in the elevation, which is why it's not showing there. The front of the building looks with a gate and then has some of these details and iron on the windows. We want to just simplify it, make it a nice clean opening. Here's our new ADA access point on this side, conference room windows, and the small window in the side. And then this would just be a nice skin coat plaster with a little reglet detail around that. And then at the back of the building, we have this part of the building that's being removed and an existing door that would be removed as well. And then we would, again, repeat this detail. Large sliders in the back to bring light in and connect to the outside. And then this is our new door, and that shouldn't be on there because we're removing the gate. But mostly we're trying to clean it up. We want to make it kind of an interesting little building and a nice spot for our office. Here's some get this off of here. Here's what the building looks like today. It's been pretty neglected for a while. Here's the gate at the front. This is that little thing on the side here that I was talking about. We just want to clean all this up and make it kind of a simple little warehouse building. Here's our building here. Next door is Rose Cafe. Then there's our driveway, and then I think Taco Puna is next door or something like that. A couple other things. This is across the street. A bunch of yards and kind of construction, mostly construction yards across the street, and an empty lot over here. This is the back of the building. This is the area of the building that's being removed, and then a portion of this building is being removed so that we can get parking to work. There were some other photos. We had other photos here that I wanted to show too.
Gary wants to see this.
Oops, I'm sorry.
So this is looking kind of, I guess, down Haley towards State Street. Here's the building here, and then there's this little building here, and then this is the Tileco building on the corner. Comanici's is here, and a couple other buildings. This is another, that's where the Tileco building is on the corner of Laguna and Haley, and then this is a big yellow warehouse kind of right next door to it. There's another shot of that. This is Comanici's with a residential unit above. There's Rose Cafe and Taco Puna down, looking down the other direction. I think these are all the same.
That was all the same, yeah.
That's the same.
Is that what you're directly across from?
Yeah, he's
No,
building right here.
We're directly across from.
It's that greenish thing.
Yeah, where's that thing? I saw it a minute ago.
It's in the map, wasn't it?
We're across from. So this is kind of across the street and east. This driveway's kind of directly across, and then there's a house here which shows up again there. And then there's this little building here. And these are primarily construction yards and storage yards in behind the buildings. Some of these are vacant. This one's for sale.
So you're between Garden and Los Olivos?
We're between Laguna and Olive.
Oh, okay.
Laguna and Olive, yeah.
I didn't mean I meant Laguna, sorry.
Yeah, this building just sold recently, and they're going to be doing renovations on that. And then so this building's for sale. There's a bunch of buildings right on this block, either side of the street, that are either for sale or changing hands right now. So.
Great. Good presentation.
We're here for comments only, but we'd love to, if we can, get back to consent or something in the future. But we're trying to purchase this building and get this thing down in the process. So the more we can push it, the better.
So with that, I'll open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the board on this project? Seeing none, are there any public letters? Any public comment? None. So I turn it back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Some questions. Looks like from the elevations that you have some sort of cowl or something in the front.
Cowl?
Cowl? Like, is there some sort of, looks different than
It's
the
just
rest?
a little plaster reveal coming across.
So it's
like
flush?
that.
Oh, it's, these are flush surfaces.
Yeah.
Change
And
in
is-
color?
Just a change in texture and color, yeah.
Texture and color.
Okay, and what about this?
That's on the back.
Yeah.
That's over the back. We wanted
Right,
to,
and
so
there is a cowl? Or
on the back
on the
there
back?
is, because what we want to do is we want to have a cover kind of over these two areas.
Okay,
So,
so there's a cowl on the back, but not on the front?
Correct.
It's just a reveal?
Yeah.
And is this some sort of different material here above and below that window?
yeah, we're kind of playing around with the idea here of having like a hollow metal door with like a metal, cut out for logo and address.
Yeah.
Just kind of real simple, and then repeated the element here where that could be like just a Corten steel or a raw steel panel above and below that window, just to kind of reflect that idea on both sides.
Are these windows cut out? Or are they recessed? Or are they flush? Or
We're looking at anodized aluminum windows, so they probably, they have a little bit of a recess to them. But they're not deep recessed and that sort of thing. It's a 2x4 frame building. It's pretty.
So they're flush with the plaster, essentially.
Yeah, the frame will be, and then the glass sets back in, half inch or so. It's not a nail on.
What's that?
It's not a nail on.
Not a nail on.
Is there any opportunity for landscaping anywhere around the building?
If we can go back, that's a great question. One of the things that we've been, really the only opportunity we have would be along this strip here,
With a bike park?
where we've got slated for bike parking, and other than that, everything else is zero lot line. And
I guess the only other option that we were considering is on those back walls, doing some little openings so we can do like a
Vine pockets?
like a vine, yeah, because
grows vine on it.
it'd be great to include that back.
Are you proposing a new fence around here? Or is there? are you
It's
just using
already
existing?
fenced in and walled in by adjacent buildings.
Okay.
So no,
Okay.
we're not. This wall back here, this is the back of the really tall warehouse at Home Improvement, and this back wall is, 20 feet high.
So there's no opportunity for vine pockets, and you're saying there's no opportunity for vine pockets on the front or tree wells or anything on the sidewalk?
I think we could get some in the back. In the front, I'm not seeing it, especially along the driveway, because it's pretty tight as it is. In the front, we might need an exception if we were going to try to do a vine pocket, because we are a zero lot line. And the parkway, I'm not remembering. There's a tree out front. There's nothing in the parkway today. Here's a photo. The parkway has this Mexican fan palm sitting here with just a well in it, and then the rest is all concrete. So.
And what about the paving of the driveway?
It's concrete today. We're hoping just to keep it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are all my questions.
If there are no other questions, we can move to comments.
I can start.
You betcha.
I'd like to have humongous improvement over what is there now. It's a Spartan minimalist approach, and I like it. I hope you do the Corten panels on the ends, because I think that would really add a little bit of extra design to it. In there, yeah. I think that would be a pretty cool touch to the. Other than that, the quality finishes, especially on the Haley Street, smooth steel trowel would be great if you can afford to do it.
That's what we're planning on doing.
Yeah. And then colors would be appropriate. I agree with Stephanie probing for more landscaping would be nice. And maybe it's some sidewalk fixtures that are just pots or something that bring a little color to the entry. Can you do that on Haley? I don't know.
Illegally, you just put it there until they ask you to remove them.
I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah. I mean, you see it all over town, so.
I know.
But other than that, I think it'd be a good improvement to the neighborhood.
Anybody else?
nothing further to add except looking for any opportunity for landscaping would be an improvement. Saw cutting the existing concrete if it's within your property. I guess it's not, though. Is it? You're right up to the property line on the front? Okay. Oh.
It seems as if you could do some vine pockets along the driveway. The rear view mirrors and things, there's always a little extra in there that is very, like a creeper or something that's very tight to the wall might really make it more inviting.
Well, I'll be slightly different. This is what your office does, and this is what you do well in your office. I have a hard time seeing it in this town and in places, and it's just. And I look at this, and there's a certain Hispanic charm here, and there's the Milpas Haley corridor. They have this special document that they put together on how we're supposed to be more Mexican and how we lay out things. So this is not in that derogatory. This is not in that direction. So other people on the board like the modern architecture, and I guess I prefer it when it has a little bit more, I guess, less mechanicalness to it, and I don't see enough of it. But it's just, the Core 10 steel would help. There's different different buildings in town that we've approved that have bolder colors and have Core 10 steel. And I'm just seeing this as a real simplest and minimalistic approach, and I'm just having a hard time. But that's just from my perspective as an architect and embracing this as a design style. It's not that it's not being done well. It's always being done well at your office. So, thank you.
Well, I'm not really a fan of that type of architecture either, but it's too simple for me. But it's perfect. I think it's perfect for this building. This building is nothing special. It's really not Spanish architecture. Although it may be current Mexican architecture, it's not really Spanish architecture. With the loss of the building in the back, this project is going completely the right direction. It's taking a blighted building and turning it into a nice structure. Very, very simple, very clean lines. I too would like to see some green walls. Perhaps A and B can get with the neighbors to get some permission to hang some of their famous pallet walls or whatever they put on there. It would be nice in the back to green it up. But those are something I don't think that we need to require. I think that what is proposed on this property is really what you can fit into it. And I'm not really in favor of the cowl in the back, but nobody's going to see it but them. So it just doesn't create an issue for us at all. So I'm ready to just say go for it.
So what we have here today, good enough to go to consent or return back to full board? Person who's making a motion.
Seems like it's good enough to go to consent for me.
For me as well.
Okay. So you want to make a motion?
Sure. The board finds the project generally acceptable and appreciates the revitalization of the building. Where there's opportunities to add more landscaping, perhaps vine pockets along the alley, seek those opportunities. Some of the members of the board find the architecture pleasing. I think that's enough to take it to consent.
Good.
Great. I'll second it.
All right. Any other discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to abstain. I'm not going to oppose. That seems too hard because it isn't. There's positive things here. But
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck with that,
I like
Clay.
the November what's going.
Yeah, it's totally November.
I almost went for it this morning.
Got started before November.
That's respectable. I love it.
I am cheating.
Let me clarify. Was that project design approval?
Design approval.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So return to consent for final.
Thanks, guys. The last one of the evening, and we are 5 minutes late. Not too bad. 525 East Mitchell-Turena Street. Proposal for facade improvements to an existing commercial building. Accessibility upgrades.
Is that the sign? Point at the sign?
Yeah, I love that kind of. I mean, it's just currently it's kind of cool looking.
Right. Can I just clarify how different these are to the plans that you submitted?
Oh, sure.
And then I need a substitute form.
Let's see. We increased a little bit of site work in front and back. As far as the building is concerned, no changes from what we previously submitted. So we're doing site work in front and back at the entries for accessibility, so that got massaged a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, let me move this a little bit. Okay, I'm Ryan Mills with DMHA. And so here we're at 525 East Mitchell-Turena, just above Olive Street. So you can see we're a couple parcels up in that old hospital neighborhood. Let me start with the site. I'm going to go photos and then to the survey. Oh, where's my photo sheet? Aha. I know we got a screen order, but we're okay. Okay. So starting from the street, you can see our building is built in 1971. Currently, it's a multi-tenant structure. The owners of this currently own and operate in the adjacent buildings, the cluster of buildings. I think there's 2 or 3 buildings. So as part of this project, they're looking to renovate this and make it their main place of business and potentially have a couple additional tenants, but they're intending to occupy the majority of the 3 stories of the building. These are views looking up the driveway, kind of gives you context. It's sort of really a 3-story box with very little massing. Here's a view from the parking lot in the back, so very similar to the front elevation. Give you a little context, and then other than this structure and its neighbors across the street, it's mostly Craftsman Bungalows, original and residential. So we go back to the site itself. You know, you're familiar with, as we go up Mitchell-Turena, the grade is moving pretty good up the hill. Then our site as well has a pretty good click up. So, you know, for example, from the right-of-way, basically from the entry stair point to the finished floor is, nearly 8 feet. So I think it's 6, yeah, you get pretty close, 6 to 8 feet. So there's quite a good jump from here to here, and then it's a flat floor, and then we kind of crest here a little bit, but then it keeps moving on up to this corner. And then it's currently a shared parking lot. So I'll just show you the whole picture. So this is their other, where they exist now. So the way the parking arrangement works now is there's a drive entry here.
That one for the television.
Is this the color version?
Not yet, I have that.
Okay.
Oh, you do? Okay. I thought it was page off.
Driveway entry here, and it circulates all the way down to Olive Street too, and it services all of these buildings. And so there's a shared parking arrangement. Existing in the back, the ADA parking spots are here. This is relatively flat. Currently, the way that it operates now is, even though this is the rear facade, this is really the point of entry for all the customers. They come back here, park, and move across. So that was one of the challenges we're looking at, is really upgrading both this, because it's really how the building operates, but also getting accessibility to the right-of-way and to the front of the building. It's going to be one of the challenges. So here's our proposed scope of work in the site. So starting at the front,
You can see we're maintaining the existing site wall, which it's a combination of older cut stone and stucco planters. So we'll work with the landscape and supplement the landscape. So along here and along here is existing. This current apron is existing. These stairs and walkway are existing. So we're reworking the entry. Currently, there's maybe about 8 feet of stair, 8+ feet, and jogs. So we're going to rework this, add in a planter, and then a lift for the front. And we wanted to provide a little space to pull off the right-of-way, clearance, a gate. We'll have some sort of decorative gate that encloses the lift and it moves up and lands us here. In addition to that, this is all existing. This is going to be new scope. Part of the project is we're opening up. Currently, these are just windows here and windows here. So we're opening up for more flexible tenant spaces. So potentially this could be a standalone tenant space with access to the front and street presence, as well as this. So we're introducing new patio. And we're up, I don't know, maybe about, well, the finished floor is maybe 18 inches above the current landscape here. And it moves a little bit, so we need to build and buffer that up a little bit. Entry itself doesn't really change. So that's the scope up front. And then in back, the big move is, so we're taking the current location that had 2 accessible spaces and none of them complied. We needed to get a van in there, so we had to rework the site a little bit. We're taking this whole area and pushing it down to this finished floor. They really require, besides the ramp being non-compliant and actually quite dangerous for some of their clientele, we wanted to have a nicer spot for both people to unload, wait, get into reception, and or lunch breaks for the employees, just a nicer space. So starting around this corner, from parking lot elevation down to finished floor at its most is about 3 feet. So at this corner. So ramp down, we have one central entry point. So right now people kind of filter from the parking lot to this location, which currently gets you to the entry. Part of reworking the accessible spots are, we have our van and second stall here that load, and I'm sorry, this isn't, just this one here, which goes directly to the entry. And then we have created a second. As you guys know, we can't, there's no walking behind second spaces, so we kind of had to figure out, we've tried every scenario to make these work. So we came up with one option that brings them both to the same entry point. We're currently working with transportation to make sure all this works. There are other options. They could move out here and go directly across, but there's a significant amount. We might have to be pushing that down as much as, 2+ feet and having a strange zigzag retaining situation, so it'd be pretty inefficient. So we're trying to dump everyone in at a central location and down and create a little courtyard space, permeable, a planter. We want a nice little canopy tree to create some sort of environment, and then as well as a buffer here. So, headlight height, landscape, and site walls just to kind of block away all the cars. Trash is something else we're also working through right now. Currently, and I don't have a good answer, here's a potential location for trash and recycling. Currently, because of the setup, they live down here in stalls, and that's how they operate. They actually get pulled up. The truck pulls up in the morning, pulls the cans out, loads it, and leaves it here. So we're going to be working with city and with trash to understand if even a truck will come up here. Because part of the other trick is the part of the trash, we need an accessible route to that. So we're going to be reconciling that. So we have a place designated if we do get the trucks in there.
Okay. Let's talk about the architecture for site planning.
Do you want to see anything here?
All interior.
The main changes you saw were converting some of the window openings to storefront systems. So one at the rear and then 2 facing the street. Otherwise, it's interior work. Okay, so as a facade renovation, we really are trying to work with as much as we have. Now the challenge here is the original structure has Spanish elements, but it's as far as a Spanish massing as I think we could get. So we were looking for ways to kind of simply and honestly tie those two together. So we looked to add some material. Since we couldn't really break the mass up physically, we wanted to break it up visually. So the main moves are, keeping most of the existing stucco body and keeping the clay. It's a real clay tile roof, and these corners would remain. These are cell towers. So some of the moves are new storefronts facing the street, and really the horizontal banding in like a cedar or a warm wood, maybe a synthetic, but we'd like to get a real Western cedar to have some warmth to it, but to skin these existing stucco pieces to really, as you can see, sort of at least visually, the stucco mass breaks down, and even both vertically balancing out those horizontals. The other is there's this tall slot window that runs over the entry. We want to reframe that. We actually have a little extra depth that's in the hall stair corridor, so we have actually a little depth where we can frame that a little deeper to get a real sill in there. Windows are metal windows currently. There's some stucco pieces between some of these that we'd either paint or trim out to get all those to go dark and recede. And then a metal canopy piece that kind of spans across the entry in a little pass and grabs onto the corner here where we could do addressing. We're playing with metal louvers or possibly solid and get some lighting to light up that entry. Then the same goes along the sides and the back. So wherever we have these bulbous stucco surrounds, we're skinning it. And we're trying to use simple, a little more contemporary detailing when we get there. So tighter corners, hardware.
Oh, great. Now
there.
Let's see the next elevation.
And then these are the sides. So this is that driveway side coming up. We can see that canopy turning and grabbing onto the corner. And there's a couple different conditions. So on the sides and the front, the siding we're going to try to get, we're getting as-built this laser shot, but we're trying to get it at least flush, if not the stucco proud of the siding. We'd like that to set in a little bit. So we're dealing with inches at most, but that's the intent, and we'll flesh that out. Whereas in the back and around some of these corners, they stick out maybe as much as about 4 to 6 inches, so it becomes a little proud. So we'll have some little trim detail underneath and on top as well. And again, in back, we do that same thing. We frame in that slot window and get a little thicker sill, slanted sill in it. And that's it. We're here for concept. Since we have so many planning issues we're still kind of working with, so we're here for comments. But would like to move along as fast as we can.
Thank you very much. I'll open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to the board on this project, which is 526 Mitchell Train Street? Seeing none. Staff, are there any letters or any staff comments?
A letter from Paula Westbury Post.
Okay. We turn it back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Ryan, are you keeping existing stucco, or is that getting redone?
Keeping patch and paint existing stucco.
And is that a Spanish lace finish, or is it, what sort of finishes do you?
No, it's
Like a light
it's
sand
not as
or-
bad as you probably imagine it is. It has a. Did I get close enough? Yeah, it's.
Looks a little rough and ready.
Yeah, it is. It is, but there was so much of it. We're trying to maintain it. From a distance, you're never getting too close to this building, except for at the when you're at the entry canopy or in the back. But yeah, we want to keep it all in the existing stucco. It's in good condition.
So you'll just go right over the top of the existing stucco?
Well, except for those locations. Again, depending on the depths here. So this would be the only locations we potentially would maybe peel away if we wanted to get that set in or flush. So here, where we're not proud, like here too. You can see how these are inset again, and we just haven't been up there. So we're guessing a couple inches. So maybe we can go right over. If we have to, we'll skim these portions.
Did I see some changes in the chimney caps and things? Is it
No.
as is? Okay.
What is the distance between the sidewalk and the finished floor where you have this chairlift? Is this like 7 or 8 feet or 5 or 6?
He said 8 at the beginning. He said 8 at the beginning.
8 feet?
Height-wise?
Height, what's this
Oh.
distance?
Yeah.
Height-wise?
Height-wise, oh, let's go survey.
That-
It was, let's see, I'm at one
said
of
8
this,
feet at
and
the
we're
beginning.
getting closer. So about 155, almost 156 to 162.
7 feet.
Yeah.
And it's a little landscaping island in the center up high.
Let's go to that elevation real fast if you don't mind.
Sure. I have it at like a, well, cheating a little bit. I pictured it rail height at the top.
Okay.
And, I imagine it could step down. Something like that, depending on, let me look at the lift.
Depending where the lift is, I suppose.
Yeah, I think after the lift, I would step it down. That's a good question. I didn't really notice that. So, yeah, so at that lift line, I would step it down. Enough to grab rails, but yeah.
Quick question for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
There's 2 trees shown on the front that look really pretty in color at the front entry stair along the driveway, and in the back where you're proposing a ramp or the accessible accessway from the van parking space. Will those have to go?
This tree, is that the one in the one in the parking? There's one here. I think that one. I don't know
I
for
thought
sure.
it was right here.
Or are we up? Are you up front? I'm sorry.
There's
Are you at
in
the
both
front of
of
the
these
building?
pictures. There's one in the front and one in the back.
The one in the front remains. That sits right in here. And I actually think there's another tree here. We're going to get a landscaper on board. We haven't really got there quite yet. And then there's an existing tree in this location. However, depending on, even here, we may need to scrape and grade to make all these ADA stalls work. So I think all the trees in this area are at risk to make that work.
Yeah. The bollards, are they going to be in conjunction with some sort of other paving transition, like the bumps?
Well, we'll
The
definitely
truncated
have our lovely truncated domes.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. And the bollards are there just so people don't drive
It's
back
really,
into it?
it was meant to be a gesture or a sense of safety for the pedestrian. They say often these people come up here and wait even for rides to pick up.
I
so
see.
we're trying to create some sort of shelter.
Can I time out for a second? Staff, we have customers or guests, and I think they're here for item 6. Can you
They're here with me.
Oh, they're here with you?
Yep.
Just wanted to tell you, item 6 was canceled. As long as you were, I don't know which project you're here for. 6. I'm sorry. Okay. It was postponed 2 weeks or indefinite?
Yeah.
Indefinite. Okay. Now back to you. I just watched more people come in going, oh my goodness.
So it was more of a sense of safety.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Are the windows being replaced? They're not. Okay.
No.
Just in the storefront.
Storefronts are new, and as well as the slot window,
yeah,
but the other existing are going to treat exactly the same to match.
Are they anodized bronze or some sort of storefront?
They're dark now, so everything moving forward will match, and we're going to get a dark anodized color metal system for everything that's new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Great. Any other questions? And if not, let's roll to comments.
I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't paying enough close attention. The liquid amber that's in the front tree well, that one's to remain?
Should be able to be remained.
Yep.
Okay.
Everything in the front is safe. I think there's a tree here too, a smaller tree. The big amber's here, so those are fine to stay. And I think we actually have one of these is I think the ambers as well.
And is that canopy that's coming out, is that freestanding? Is there any pillars coming down for that?
No. No, we think we can, part of engineering, we think we can hang it off. I mean, maybe suspend it from the building, but no proposed posts coming down to the ground.
And is it your idea that's going to be a steel structure, an I-beam, or?
Yeah, like a steel channel, at least, around the perimeter. We can maybe sit something, the address on top, or inset it. And then we're undecided as far as is it enclosed or like a louvered open. We're
Has to do
studying
with
that
the
right
weight.
now. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So, other questions?
Great, let's roll to comments.
I'll roll into comments, see how I'm talking. In the rear of the building, I think it's unfortunate to just make it a blank wall, and I'd like to see some of the same details that you put onto the front, where we have some of that fenestration.
Oh, we do. It's the next page. That's the side.
This is the side?
Yeah. This is the back.
I made a mistake there. So the side doesn't currently have windows? Or no?
Well, above it is the existing picture, existing elevation.
Where are you?
I'm looking at this.
A201.
A201.
So you're looking at one of the sides and one of the front.
Yeah,
so this side,
This is the.
and that's existing?
Facing the
This
neighboring
is
property.
existing. This is facing the neighbor. There's a bunch of trees in between. At the bottom, you see all the electrical closets. So above the electrical, no, there are no openings on the floors.
Okay, and
above.
that's existing.
Yeah.
Okay. I would just say the only, I'm in favor of the project in general. I like the idea. I think that it's opening some things up. I'm a little leery about the use of the steel canopy, though. I don't think that is in keeping with the proposed architecture. Although it's moved a great way from where it was. The 70s/60s Spandeco architecture wasn't exactly something that was pleasing to the eye, even I think at the time it was built. But I just think that that adding that modern element to it is not really the right direction, and that would be the only thing that I would have a problem with.
Next.
I think this is a great improvement to this building. I love the new materials that you're proposing, the siding, especially to give it some depth and shadow. Pulling it away from the building is a great improvement to it. With regard to the canopy, I think the canopy is also an improvement. I'm not sure about the signage you're proposing. It would be preferable to be something made in conjunction with the canopy. Maybe it's punched through the canopy or something. I don't know. But overall, the concept is a vast improvement. I look forward to, seeing where you go with it, because I see that you have a lot of details to work out.
Scott?
Sure. Great improvements to the existing building. Really enhances the appearance. When Gary brought up the canopy, it kind of made me think. Is this metal canopy, steel canopy, really appropriate to this building? I think it looks nice on the rendering, so that's a step in the right direction. But will it really be carried off in the details? Is it going to look too alien? And I think there's a chance that it might. It's hard to argue with the renderings because they look so beautiful. It really comes down to the detailing, and it may be a little at odds with the character of the building. A few details moving forward are going to be really important. I think that to get some separation and depth between these guys that aren't popping out and the ones that are. If they're flush, it's just not going to carry off as well. And then the cedar, it's a great exterior material. It can weather pretty gray. And if it goes gray, this building is going to turn from a butterfly to a moth. So I wouldn't be opposed to some synthetic materials if it could maintain the appearance. But on the whole, I think great improvements.
I will concur with everything great improvements and even the signage and the canopy, the detailing. The one little detailing thing to bring to your attention is the lift. And it's only because when the lift is down, we're looking at a 7-foot retaining wall in the back and how you dress that up to make it look kind of cool, as well as the guardrail on the top part. So we're at 7 plus 42 inches, and now we're at 10.5 feet, which is going to require you to get a mod. Because of the height of the wall within the front yard setback, perhaps, because they're going to measure. We'll find out.
We don't
really.
have setbacks per se. It's commercial.
It's commercial. Then good. I don't. You know, it's more of a technicality because you really have a 7-foot retaining wall back there, plus a guardrail on top of that. And so when the lift is up, we look at one thing, and when the lift is down, we look at something else. So that's a challenge, and it's something that just takes creativity to have something that looks great on a Sunday afternoon when the building's vacant. Other than that, it's a fabulous building. I mean, improvements, nice, great design flair.
Great. Well, thank you.
So at this point, indefinite continuance back to full board.
Well, we're cooking, so everything's moving right now.
You want a 2-week continuance?
Yeah, we'd like to be back here in 2 weeks. Do you think we can do that?
In 2 weeks is what going to be the.
We have 2 more visits
We
here
have
this year.
25th and the 9th, those are the last 2 meetings for the
Yep.
DGR.
Does someone want to make a motion for a 2-week continuance back to full board?
Sure, I'll make a motion. The board finds the design or proposed changes attractive and appropriate to the style of architecture. There's some concern about the metal canopy, if it's entirely appropriate for the style of architecture.
And the neighborhood.
And the neighborhood. There was some concern about the detailing and the offset of the proposed wood siding with the plaster architecture. And the steps may need some study in terms of the height of the dividing planter.
Look forward to a landscape plan.
Landscape plan. So, 2-week continuance.
If you don't have it done, we'll see it in 4 weeks. Anything else? Who would like to second that
Second
motion?
that.
Second by Stephanie.
Mr. Chair, I was just pointing out that if the address is proposed to be over 6 inches, then it does need a sign committee review for that letter height. So
Right.
if you want to tone it down or go through sign committee.
This was more inspirational.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be pulled as a separate permit. So that was some intent, but I like the idea of maybe integrating it a little better into that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys.
You can have the vote.
We need a call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we're going to call it a night, 5:30.
Okay.